Let's get started. We have about 60 minutes of video training on various things of Power Query that relate to accountants and finance professionals. Hello everyone, this is me Chandoo from New Zealand, Wellington. Today is a nice and clear day, and it's already starting to feel warm. I thought I'll just show you a glimpse of how it is outside, and then we'll get into the good stuff. So this is how it looks outside. It's not quite sunny yet, but it is clearing up quite a bit. So it looks to be a really good day. Let me just start the screen share, and then we will get into the topic for the day. So hello and welcome to a Power Query for Accountants and Other Finance People Masterclass. In this session, I'll have a brief introduction, and then we will talk about 5 topics. What is Power Query? A quick tour. This is not supposed to be an introduction level training. So if you have no experience working with Power Query, then while you can see the benefits of it in this course, you will not be able to understand how certain things are happening. So I'm assuming you have some experience with Power Query. It doesn't have to be a very in-depth experience. We will then understand how you can extract data from bank or credit card statements, how we can combine different monthly files. It could be ledger files, or it could be any statements or transaction details or whatever, split up in monthly or weekly or whatever basis, and how you can combine all of them into one data set based on some rules. How to reconcile paid versus sent invoices, or any of those kind of things, and how to build a live currency exchange rate calculation using Power Query. So those are the 5 things that we will cover. A brief introduction. My name is Chandoo. I run a website called chandoo.org, where my mission is to teach people Excel and Power BI and make them awesome in their work. I've been doing this for a little over 10 years now, and I really enjoy this work. It is my full-time job, running the website and helping people, and learning and sharing my thoughts and ideas. I'm super happy to share the information about Power Query with you on our YouTube live event today. And I live in New Zealand right now, but I'm originally from India. And when I'm not working with Excel or Power BI, I love cycling and walking and building stuff with Legos or reading, etc. You can follow my website on chandoo.org. You can also visit me on Twitter at @R1C1 or many other social media platforms. So this is, I thought I'll just show you a glimpse of where we live. This is one of the places in Wellington where we occasionally go for a walk. As you probably know, New Zealand is quite beautiful, so not everything can fit into one slide. So this is something, a panorama that I took on my phone, and you can see my wife and our twins, Nishant and Nakshatra. It was a hot day, so you can't even see their faces, but there they are. All right, let's get into Excel. I'll escape this, and we will jump into Excel. Before we proceed with the thing, I'll just check if there is any messages. It looks like there is no audio issues or anything, so I will continue. From time to time, I will check the chat window. So in case you have any question, or you feel like something is not clear, please feel free to ask. The example files for this video will be available on my website. I will share the link with you in the chat window as well, and you can go ahead and download the files later. But while this video is being recorded, the file is not yet ready. So once it is all done, maybe around 6-10 hours from now, you would be able to download the file as well. So we will get a quick tour of Power Query, and then we will understand how to extract data from a bank or credit card statement. Let me first show you one such statement. Obviously, usually we receive bank statements or credit card statements as comma separated value files, CSV files, or text files, or sometimes even as PDF. You can read any of those kind of things except PDF as of this moment. If the data is available in a PDF document, then you would need to somehow copy that into Excel or Notepad and then connect it to Power Query. So what I've done is I have made up an artificial bank statement using random values like this in a spreadsheet. Assume this is the data that you receive from the bank. Um, so we got some transaction dates, processing dates, type of the payment, details, particulars, codes, and reference, various kinds of columns that your bank may decide to add, and the vital information amount, right? Let's say this is for a small business and you would like to load this statement into a spreadsheet for doing some further analysis or auditing or whatever may be the case. So we want to connect to this and load it, and as you can see, there are some problems with the date columns. There is a lot of information, and we would like to set it up through Power Query as a connection and load it. While explaining that, I will also talk about a quick introduction of Power Query. So this is our bank statement. Again, it's not much, there's nothing much to read here because it's quite small on the screen. But there are several columns, and there is an amount column which is of main interest, but we would also need to have other columns to understand what is that amount. And just like a typical bank or credit card statement, both positive and negative amounts are all in the same column. So both debits and credits are in one place, like negative 250, negative 100, like that. And then there is a positive value. This must be a credit, and those are the debits. So we would like to bring these values to Power Query. And when we do that, we would like to split this into two sets of data, debits and credits, so that we could then go and do further analysis on individual basis. So I'll close this. I don't need to save this file, and I'll open our workbook for the day. Add a we don't need to add a sheet. We will go to the data ribbon and then set up a new query. So this is where you will start accessing Power Query. Go to data and access new query button from get and transform area or Power Query area. Depending on which version of Excel you're using, the place to go and click the button will be slightly different. For example, I'm using Office 2016, Excel 2016 here, and this is where it is. And it also has these get external data buttons. We don't need to use them. We will just use this ones. Whereas if you use Office 365, you may not see that button. You will directly see these things. And starting 2019 version of Excel, this might itself be called as Power Query rather than get and transform. So from here, we go to data, new query, and we will tell Power Query how we want to bring our bank statement. In this case, we would like to bring this data from a CSV file, comma separated values file. So that's what we will do. We will just say get the data from a CSV, and then you can point to the folder where this data is. I have this data in my masterclass 02 folder. That's my bank statement.csv, which is what we will load. So I'll click on import. While this is doing, let me quickly check the chat window. Everything looks good. So we will bring this data now to Power Query. And at this point, Power Query will show us a preview of the data. And this is just so that we can make sure that everything is coming through as required. It looks all right to me, so I'll go ahead and edit it so that we can go and set up some rules on top of this. All right, so this will open up the Power Query editor screen, where we will be able to look at the data and set up some processing rules to work with the data. So now that we are looking at the Power Query, let's quickly understand what Power Query is and take a quick whirlwind tour of Power Query. Power Query is a data processing software. You can use Power Query to bring data from anywhere. It could be in a database, it could be in a file, it could be in a web page, it could be in a cloud storage. So bring the data and then set up some rules on top of the data. You could tell through Power Query, you could tell things like, show me only the debits, show me only automatic payment kind of transactions, show me only things that have happened in the month of March 2017, whatever may be the case. So you could tell Power Query such rules. The rules that I just described are very basic rules. You can also go ahead and do some advanced rules. So that's what it does. It is a data processing software. It acts as an interface between your data and your analysis, right? So often when we want to analyze the data, whether you are an accountant or a finance professional or a marketing person or a HR person, whatever may be the case, when we want to analyze the data, the biggest challenge that we face is our data may not be clean or in a desired state. So in such cases, what we do is we spend a lot of time wasting in either Excel or whatever may be the software processing the data. So using Power Query, you could save all of that time. You could just tell Power Query how you want your data as a process, and then set up that process in Power Query. Once that is all done, whenever there is new data, you just have to refresh, right? There is a refresh button inside Excel. You can refresh and it will bring new data. Power Query as a data processing software is available both in Excel and in Power BI. So you could use Power Query to clean and reshape the data, whether the data goes to Excel or it goes to Power BI. And then you could use those tools, Excel and Power BI, to do your analysis. As people who work in accounting and finance domain tend to be predominantly spending their time in Excel, we will learn this entire process through Excel, but whatever ideas you are learning, you can apply them in Power BI as well. So when you open Power Query Editor, this is how it looks. It kind of shows you a preview of whatever query you have selected. You could have more than one query. You could have connections to different files. As throughout this video, we will build multiple connections, you will see. Right now, there is only one, so this is what it is. If you want to see what queries are there, you could use the left-hand side panel, which is collapsed, called Queries. Expand it to see what are the connections that are there. And as you select something, the preview of that will show up here. This preview kind of looks like Excel, but it is not Excel. It is a preview of your data, right? It's just showing you how your data looks at that point in time. And on top of your preview is your standard ribbon interface, which is, again, we are familiar with ribbon through Excel, PowerPoint, Word, or Outlook, or any other Office software. So the ribbon is just like a menu, but everything is spelled out. You can use ribbon to access things. There are different kinds of ribbon. The home ribbon is where most of the common functionalities are mentioned. And then you could do two of the main things. Whenever we work with the data, we would like to transform the data, that is, change the nature of the data. Or we would like to add stuff. We would like to add a new column that tells us whether this is a debit or credit. Those are the kind of things. So that's why those two will be there. And then there is a view ribbon using which you could customize the way this Power BI, Power Query editor window looks. Apart from all these things, there is also a query setting pane that opens up from the right hand side, which gives us some detail of what is going on, what is the name of the query, and how many steps have been applied. So as I said, Power Query is a data processing software. So the data processing happens in steps. Step number 1, locate the bank statement file, connect to it. Step number 2, bring the data and use the first row as headers. So those are what these steps are. You could also enable optional formula bar in Power Query. And then once the formula bar is there, you could actually see what is going on behind scenes as you apply these steps. To enable that, you can go to View ribbon and click on Formula bar, and that'll enable this. This is a one-time thing. Once you do it on your computer, you don't need to do it again and again. It will always be on, and you can see the formula bar. Power Query uses a special language called M, which is letter M for mother, and it is a language using which everything that you do in Power Query happens. You don't need to learn this language. Most of the things that we want to do on day-to-day basis can be done with the menu options right there. But learning the language will help you do some fairly advanced stuff. Okay. Again, this session is not for learning M language, so I won't go into those details. Anyhow, we got our bank statement. Now let's define some simple goals. Goal number one is, let us say for this analysis, we don't care about a transaction of the type transfer. This is because the transfer is a transaction that appears in the bank statement, which is simply moving money from one account to another within the same user thing. Like this is a small business, so they have multiple accounts, one checking account and one savings account, and from time to time they move money between these two, which are tagged as transfers, and we don't want to show those transfer amounts. So what you could do is you could go and apply a filter. It's simply select the little filter icon, just like how we do in Excel, untick the transfer and click OK. And now it will add a rule that says I'm going to filter with type should not be equal to transfer. That's what it shows here. So it will not show the transfer type of transactions. And then the next thing that we want to do is we want to look at the amount values. This is my amount, and based on the amount we would like to categorize these amounts, right? If the amount is between $0 and $50, then it is a $15, it is a small transaction. Between 15 and 100 is a medium, and anything more than $100 is a large transaction. That way, you could, when you are doing analysis or whatever, you may be able to focus the effort on the large transactions to see if there is any fraud happening or anything suspicious going on, something like that. But because the amount itself can be both positive and negative, we would like to first create an absolute value, that is what is the actual amount. So we can select the amount column, go to add column, and then see if there is any functionality that will give me the absolute amount. There are several standard arithmetic things from number. So we can see here there's nothing. There is, in the scientific area, there is an absolute value. So you can say add a column of the absolute value from the selected column. So it will give me absolute value. That's the amount. The negative sign is gone essentially, and I can see this. Now, based on this, we would like to categorize the amount, whether it is between 0 to 15 or 15 to 100 or 100 or more. This is what we call as a conditional column. That means the value in that column, the category, is a condition based on this number. So select this and then say conditional column. Again, we are adding a column and we can give a condition. So this conditional column name shall be category, and the column name absolute value is less than 15, and this is a small transaction. We could add one more rule. If the absolute value is less than 100, that's a medium transaction. If these two are not the case, then it would be a large transaction. This is similar to writing an if formula in Excel, but here you're doing it as a rule. That means if there is a new bank statement available with more transactions and you refresh, all the statements data will come, and then new categorization will happen. So every amount is now categorized as small, medium, or large. Now that this job is done, we don't need the absolute amount anymore. So I can right click on the absolute value and then say remove. That column is not necessary anymore because it was only needed to do the categorization. So once that's done, it is gone. And these are all steps. So you can see all the steps getting added here. At any point, if you have a doubt, you want to see how things looked at some point in the past, you just select that step, and then Power Query will show you a preview of how things looked at that point. So this is the final step, right? Now what we want is we want to split this into debits and credits. To do that, we can simply go here, and a debit is anything that is negative. So I can go to the amount filter, and the number filter is less than, or I think less than 0. So if I do that, now I'm only looking at all the debits, none of the credits are here, right? So this is my debits. If I want to have a list of credits as well, we could do that. We could do that too. You would either revert the condition or you can do something else, which I will explain in a minute. But before we do that, we split this into credits as well. Let's give this query a name. Now that we have done our job and this is only debits, I'll give my query name. So select the name area, and then here we will say debits. That is a query. Now you can go to the queries and you can see that there is a debits query. The credits query is exactly same with the reverse condition. So that means amount should be greater than 0 rather than less than 0. So we can right click on debits and then say duplicate. That means just give me a copy of the same query. It will give you a copy. This query, we will call it as credits. So we now have a new query called credits, and in this credits query, the last step where we are filtering, I will change that. So I can click on that little cog or gear icon and change the condition from less than to greater than. And we are now looking at credits. So we have both debits and credits. That is one file, but now split into two, one with debits and one with credits. Now that our job is done, we could go ahead and load this data. So this is how you finish your job in Power Query. All of the transformations are done. Everything is clean and we want the data. We finally got the data in the shape that we want. We could go and say close and load from the home area. When you do that, the default behavior is at this point, Excel will add multiple worksheets because we are now loading two different tables, one per query, and in each worksheet it will load the data as a table with the same name as you have given in Power Query. So it's now debits table and credits table. But mind you, this is all a connection to the file on your computer, whichever file that. So this is the file that is connected to. So if I have a new bank statement, I just need to replace the new statement with this and make sure the names are same. And once all of that is there, we will have to come here, go to data and refresh all. Once you hit that, Excel will go and connect to that file, bring the data, apply all the steps, remove any transfers and categorize the amounts and split it into both debits and credits and give us two tables. So this is how you can use Power Query to process data and connect to a file and bring the data as per your requirement. You could go ahead and add some advanced conditions there as well. It's just a bit of depends on what work you're doing and how you want your data. Let me quickly cross check. So someone is asking, would you show us how to connect with the bank's website, or how will that go? Obviously you can. I will show you a little example towards the end of this session where we connect to Reserve Bank website to figure out what is the live exchange rate. There are ways to work around it. By default, Power Query can connect to websites that are public. In this case, because your bank statements would be private, that is, you would have to log in to access them. um, the way to access them will depend on what your bank is willing to share and whether they have an API or something else. So this is where it may be possible, but it all depends from bank to bank, and certain banks provide a payment API gateway through which you can connect and bring the statements. This is probably how many finance software like Zero or My Online Budget or something, those software can connect to your bank account and bring the statement transactions. But that is fairly advanced in my opinion. It might be possible, but depends on the bank. All right, let's see the second one, which is combining monthly files. Now imagine you got a bunch of ledger statements, ledger values here. So one per month. I got your May, June, July 2017. So this is for full financial year 17-18, and you got only 3 months value. So this is how they look. Each of them have same format. I'll open one of them so you can see. There are 6 columns: service area, description, creditor, journal date, journal reference, and the total amount. So this is the data, and in each month you would have hundreds of transactions, but the format is same. Several columns, they all uh, follow the same thing, and they all sit in the folder called ledger, right? And you got three of them now, but potentially you could have 6, 12, 95, whatever. And we would like to bring all of the data rather than looking at individual tables. We would like to just get everything and make one giant table so that we could then make some graphs or analysis or whatever in Excel. You could also do that through Power Query. Just go to data, new query. Earlier we did from file and an individual file, but now what we want is all the things in the folder. So we will use the folder option and set up the folder based connection. It'll ask you where is your folder. You can say the folder is excuse me while I navigate this. Oops, I think I went to the wrong place. That's why everything looks weird. So we will select the folder where the files are, and that's my folder path. And when you click OK, at this point Power Query will go and try to connect to the folder, and it will show you a preview of what it found. It says, I found a bunch of Excel files, and then the content is here, right? So if you're happy, you can just click on combine and it will do something, or you can go ahead and edit, right? You can go and edit the connection. We don't really know how this works, but we will just give the combine a try, and then we'll say combine and edit. That means you just combine everything and then show me what you found there. So it is now trying to combine the files, and it stops at the first file and then says, this is how your first file looks. So you can select a one of the worksheets. There's only one worksheet per file, and then say this is what. So because it doesn't know what to do with the Excel file, it is now asking you how you want to treat. This is what we want, and then when we click OK, at this point, essentially what Power Query will do is it will go to the sheet one, the very first worksheet in all the three files, and then try to bring the data and combine everything into one giant table and give us this. So it is now combining everything, right? You can see here that is July data is here, and then as you scroll down, we will eventually come to June, and then if you go further down, you will see May data. So everything is here, right? But this is a very plain vanilla combination. That means everything is taken and then just combined one after another, just stitching together. But the file name is maintained so that you would know where this data is coming from, and you can use that to distinguish the items. If you want, you could also go and tell Power Query how the files should be processed. In our case, we didn't bother telling. We just said my data is in the sheet one, and it automatically picked up all the sheet ones and stitched them together. But what if you want to exclude or include only one type of service area? That is, within each file there are multiple service areas, and we are only interested in maybe children's family services or travel expenditure, right? You could do that. You could go and see on the queries area. When you did that, we thought only now there is only the three queries, because earlier we had debits and credits, and now you have ledger, so there should be three. But no, Power Query creates a entire folder structure here with something called sample query. This might seem a little technical, but essentially what this is this is an example through which Power Query is trying to replicate the process. So sample query is how it is reading one of the files, and if you want to make changes, you make change to the sample query, and when you make the change, it will be applied to all the queries, all the files within that folder. So for example, I'm only interested in traveling expenditure. I can go to my transform sample file, and this is the file. This is one of the files, and then here I can say just we are not interested in everything. We are only looking at traveling and vehicle running and maybe telephone calls and training expenditures, right? So we set up some arbitrary filter condition. You could also add some journal reference filtering or amount based filtering, any of those kind of things. So what we did is we made a change to the behavior in one of the files. That's the sample file. Now if you come back here, you can see that immediately, this is only showing those expenditures. So earlier it had hundreds of rows, 900 plus rows, but now it only has 258 because it's looking at those particular types of expenditure category and bringing that. Okay, so we have done that job. We will now close and load this data will also come and sit here as a ledger table, right? Now I'll show you how this works. Let's say from this ledger table you make a pivot table. You want to do some analysis on top. I'll just create something very quick and simple. We want to see the account description and journal date and total amount. So this is the total amount, and we make a simple um, chart. One of these amounts are very high, but so we create this, right? We can see where the money is going. Obviously the vehicle running costs are very high, and thus the money amounts in May, June and July. Now all is good, and we suddenly realize, oh wait a second, I have August data, right? I go to August and then copy and then paste this file in the folder. So now the folder has 4 files, not 3. And we come back to our data here, and then we refresh all, and see the magic happen. As it refreshes, it will try to bring everything. What happened? Let's see if the data is coming. There may be nothing else in August. Oh, there is. Okay, so it is there. It's just maybe the refresh was not through. Yep. So as you refresh, I think you may need to have refreshed twice, or wait. You can see what happened in August as well. So without even making any changes to any of the calculation or pivot or the Power Query, as you add new files, same rules will apply on that, and it will bring the new data. So this is how you can combine the data. This is another problem that people, especially in finance or many other domains, face. Right, you have data, but it is kind of scattered all over the place, and we would like to bring everything, stitch them together. But if you make copies of the data in a spreadsheet, like copy paste the data and do it, then it's manual work. Again, next month or next week or next year, you would have to repeat that. Whereas through this method, you will leave the files as they are. As long as they follow some sort of a meaningful pattern, we would be able to combine them. Let me just check if there is any interesting questions coming up. Krishna is asking, is it possible to write SQL and extract data from database or multiple databases? Of course, yes, you can. There are different types of connections, as someone has replied. You can have from file, from database, or there are other sources, and you would simply write a blank query or an ODBC connection through which you can write the queries. Right, if you are connecting to an established database like a SQL server or something, you will have an option to either connect to a table or a model, or you can just say, let me give the query myself, and then you can connect. Unfortunately, I do not have any databases installed on this computer, so I cannot demonstrate that, but it is possible. I've built some solutions like that where we can take. The beautiful thing is, not only you can connect to a database through a query, but you can bring the data through SQL or something as a query, and then combine that with something else. This is another common pattern. Often some of the data is in SQL, some of the data is in SAP, some of the data is in SharePoint. And to do our work, we need to merge everything together through joins. If everything is in one place, we could write SQL and apply some joins to connect the data. But what if your data is in 2 different systems that are not compatible? Well, you could use Power Query. You could connect table 1 from this system, table 2 from that system, bring both of them, and within Power Query you can tell join these 2 tables, which is what we are going to do next. Reconciling sent versus paid invoices. So for the reconciliation example, I have 2 tables. one table with sent invoices, invoice number, client name, and amount, and another table paid invoices where I have my invoice number and how much amount is paid. As with real life, there are some twists here. Just to keep things simple, I've shown them in Excel tables, but this approach and technique works just the same whether you're connecting to two different tables in Excel or two files or two different database queries. So what happens is we have an invoice, for example, for $395.70 here. It could so happen that that invoice is paid, but maybe the amount is different. So there is an amount mismatch. There is also an amount exact match scenario too. And sometimes there would be duplicate records. That means same invoice number appears twice, either either because this system is inconsistent, or there is a human error, or the client themselves genuinely overpaid, whatever may be the case. But we have a combination like this, two different tables, what is sent, what is paid, and we would like to reconcile both of these to and then understand clearly which invoices have been paid in full, which invoices are having amount mismatch, and which invoices have not been paid or paid multiple times, those kind of things. So to do that, what we will do is we will have to first bring these two tables to Power Query. So when you have data within the same spreadsheet where you want to do, you can also bring the data to Power Query. Just select any cell inside the table and go to data from table. That's what we will use. So we will load this data to Power Query. It will come and sit here nicely. And if you observe from the source step, it's essentially bringing a table called inv.sent, invoices sent. So this is my sent invoices, right? I will, what we want is we would also like to bring the, not just sent invoices, but the paid invoices as well. Because once both tables are there, we could then combine them on invoice ID to see what is happening with the invoices. Right, to do that, you can just say close and load. But remember, whenever you close and load, the default behavior is Excel will create a new table in a new worksheet with the same data as you see in the last step. Right, this is what it does. But we already have this data, we don't need one more table of this. So this is one of the pains of working with a table that is already in the spreadsheet. When you have a table and you load it to Power Query, when you close and load, it will create one more table, which creates unnecessary duplication of data. So you could use close and load. There is a little arrow and load to option. And then what we want is, we don't want Excel to create a table, just leave it as a connection. So this way it will be there in the Power Query, but you don't see it anywhere on the screen within Excel. We will do the same step for paid invoices. And we now have two tables, invoice paid, invoice sent. You can see them here. I'll collapse these things. So invoice sent and invoice paid. Both of these tables have invoice information, and they both have invoice ID as a common parameter. That means same ID here can be found there. Can be, I'm saying it, some of the invoices would not have any payment record, but there is a commonality there. Now, we are not going to discuss about what if we send the invoices, but we get payments, but we don't know against which invoice they are paying. Well, that's a bigger problem, and occasionally it requires a little more engineering and math and everything, which is, to be honest, beyond the scope for what we are trying to achieve in this 1 hour. But assuming you got some invoice IDs here and then invoice IDs there, we would just like to merge these two tables, marry them, so that we can see which have been paid, which have not been paid. So I'll go to invoice sent. This is my master list, all the invoices that we have, and we would like to combine that with invoices that are paid. So select this, go to the invoice table, and then from home there is a merge queries option. We could merge as a new, that means it will create a brand new query, or we can just merge them here. We will just merge them here, and it will open up your dialog here. So table 1 is invoice sent, table 2 is invoice paid, and we would like to join them on invoice ID column. So this is typical, similar to writing a SQL join or other kinds of things. We are taking invoice ID column from there and merging them. The default behavior is it will use what is called as a left outer join. Right? It sounds technical, but what it means is all the values in this table will remain. If there is a matching value here, you will get that. If there is no matching value, you will see a null right next to that. That's what all from first, matching from second. You can change the join kind. You can, for example, you're only interested in unpaid invoices. That means there is no record of that invoice in the paid list. You could use, I think it's yeah, rows only in first. That means there is a row here, an invoice here, no matching record there, right? You could change these. Just have a read, and within brackets there is an explanation of what it is. I'll leave it to left outer for now, because we want to keep our master list intact and just figure out what happened with each of those invoices. And click OK. You will get something like this. It says pay, but a table has been found against each row. This is Power Query's way of saying I found a table. The table could be just one row or multiple rows. If there is multiple payments against that invoice, all of them will be there in the table. You can select any cell in the Power Query, especially if the cell has a table or a list. Select that and you can see the preview. For example, invoice 20,002 is empty. That means there's no payment. This one they have paid twice, same amount twice. This one they have paid $225.20, but they paid $227.20. So there is an amount mismatch here, right? So all sorts of things are there, but we are able to see what is going on. You can go ahead and expand this. For example, uh, just select the column. There is a bi-directional weird arrow thingy, which says, what do you want to do? Just expand, and we can expand. We don't need to see the same invoice number again. We just want to see how much amount has been paid. That's the amount. And you can exclude the use the original column name as prefix option because it's the same column name, and it will give you this. Right, wherever there is a null, that means the payment has not been made. Wherever there is an amount match, that means it has been paid in full. And wherever there is an amount difference, that means they have paid either partially or overpaid. So we can do that. Only problem with this approach is there are some duplications, right? Some invoices have multiple values, right? So what to do in such case? This is just to show some real life variations I have implemented. At this point, you could take a call. For example, your scenario is the duplication is happening because of a human error, right? They're not paying duplicates. It's just someone is typing in the payments received, so they might have made a copy paste and an error. So in such case, what we could do is we could go to invoice paid table, and then before doing anything else here, we could remove the duplicates. So right click on invoice number and then say remove duplicates. Any invoice ID that is duplicated, just get rid of that. So this way the human error problem will not be there. And this query, remember, any merges that you do will happen on the final step. So this merge is looking at the latest version of invoice paid. It would not have any duplicates and it will show like this. So let's say this is the case and invoice paid amount and amount are there. And now I can go ahead and tag these invoices. I can go and add a column. We can add a conditional column. The conditional column is status. And if amount equals paid amount, then we want the status as paid in full. If amount is less than paid amount, that means we asked them 500 and they paid 700. So this amount is less than paid amount. This is overpaid. If amount is greater than, then this is underpaid. If all these conditions are not true, that means it's null. So we could simply say not paid. We'll check this because I'm not really sure how this comparison will work with null. But if it doesn't work, then we will have to change the order of these rules. So if we get these errors, this is because we are trying to compare 375.5 with null, and null is not technical value. So we are getting some errors unless there is a paid in full. So we could go ahead and change the order of these rules. We can double click on that little cog icon, and then we can say to Power Query, first check if it is null. If it is null, that means it's not paid, and then apply these conditions. So we could go and say if invoice paid amount equals null, then the output we want is not paid. Then we check less than greater than conditions, and then hopefully that will work. There may not be any errors. Yeah, but it looks like there is no error. And we now have a clarity on all the invoices. At this point, if for your work, if you are interested only in unpaid invoices, you could even have a filter here. But if you're only interested in unpaid, then you could just use a left anti-join and get that information directly rather than doing all of these. And once this is done, we could go ahead and close and load. At this point, it will create. Obviously, the invoice End Table is where our information is. It created a table for invoice paid. We don't want this table. What you could do is right click and just delete the worksheet. Yeah, sorry, you don't want to delete because we want information there just as a connection, not loading. So right click on this and click on load to, and then say don't give me a table, just create a connection there, and click OK. So now this connection is there, and this one we will just load to as a table, and we get this. So this is our invoice list, and the status, everything is dynamic here. If something changes, you would go and change it in the reconciliation page. For example, they realize that there is something wrong with that amount, it is 430. You can come and change this information, go to the place where it is, and refresh, and it would update the status. I don't really know where it is, but it would update. All right, let's go to the next one. I was just checking the comments to see if there is any other feedback. Live currency exchange rate calculation. This is another very useful thing, especially if you're dealing with accounting or financial calculation, where the information that you get is from multiple countries or multiple currency rates, currency codes, and you would like to fetch the exchange rate and then do some multiplication based on that. You could do that, right? You just need a source where this information is available. Because I live in New Zealand, I thought, let me just check where I can find reliable information about exchange rate between New Zealand dollar and other major currencies. Turns out RBNZ, which is Reserve Bank New Zealand, publishes these rates. I'll just open up this page so I can show you. They publish these rates every day. I think so they publish them 3 p.m. every day. So the last release was on 29th of August 2018, 3 p.m. And then again today in a few hours they will be publishing a new rate. There is a lot of information here. For example, you can download historical exchange rates from 2014 to current. If you want to build a date-based checking, like when the transaction happened and what was the exchange rate as of that date, you can download this file and build that conditions on it. You don't even need to download. Look at the URL for this. The URL will always be, I'll just copy link and show it to you in Excel. That's the URL, and if you notice the URL, there is no specific information here. It will always be at that link. They just replace the file, so you can make a connection to that Excel file through Power Query, data, new query, other sources, web, and connect to that Excel file on the web and bring the exchange rate information directly. We will, because we have been connecting to Excel files already a few times in this masterclass, I thought I'll show you how to bring the data from a web page. Further down on the web page, there is information that we want. There is a lot of information, but if you look at this, let's say for this analysis, you're just building against United States dollar. So the rate against USD is mentioned for the past 10 days, and the last column is what we want. This is 0.6708 is the bit that we are interested in. So that's what we will connect to and bring to Excel. To do this, we will just go to new query. I'll just copy this URL. That's where the information is. So you need a source from where you can get, and because it will be easy for me to show from Reserve Bank News website, I'm showing that. Whatever website you connect to, it should have public access. That means, it will give you the information when you connect, not like it'll ask for a password or it'll show some ads or those kind of things and then take you to the information, because that way you will not be able to build a reliable connection. So from web, and what is the web address? The address is here. That's my address. And when you click OK, Power Query will show you this box asking how you want to connect. So you can just use anonymous connection and connect. Here are some clues as well. If you are connecting to an intranet page where your colleagues share some information, you may want to use Windows authentication. That way it will use your Windows network ID to decide and tell the website that this person is connecting, and and intranet sites work on that basis usually, so they will let you. There are also some API based accounts and organizational accounts and things like that. Have a play with them, but we will use anonymous because this is public site, anyone can connect to it. And we will connect to it. And this will show a navigator page. Usually whenever you connect to anything in Power Query, unless it is very simple, you will come across the navigator screen where you have to make a choice. What do you want? So it found 3 different tables, and it is asking, which table do you want me to bring? Document is the main table. This is probably not what we want. Symbols and conversions for summary. This is also not what we want. Table 0. This looks interesting. I think this is what we want, except the information we want is somewhere in the middle. That's the information we want. But we will go ahead and edit this. This has the information that we need. And it will show a preview. Now, while Power Query is really useful and quite powerful, it has some annoying niggles that I find, if you ignore, they will create unnecessary problems for you later. This is because everything happens on a step-by-step fashion. So if there is an error in one of the steps, then the next steps cannot run and it will just stop refreshing. So this is why one of the things that Power Query automatically does is it adds a change type step every now and then. I don't like this because this assumes several things. For example, here change type assumes that the column names will always be 16 August, 17 August, 20 August. That's not the case. Tomorrow or today afternoon, whenever they release the new rates, 16th August won't be there anymore. 17 will come and then 20 will go here. So this change type is going to create problems for us. So we want to delete that step. Anytime you don't want a step, you just select the step, red color tick mark, click on it, it's gone. All right, so this is the table. The data that we want is right here, right? Essentially, the data that we want is for the latest date. Whatever is the maximum date they have, that's what we want. That's really the thing that we are interested in. Because of this format, the latest date will be the last column. Now, if I go to my home, and then I can see that there are several keep options. For example, I can keep the bottom row, but I can't keep the leftmost column or rightmost column. That is not possible. But what I can do is I can transform this table. I can tell Power Query, hey, can you take this table and then transpose it? That is, turn it upside down like this. So we will transpose the table. From transform, click on transpose. It will just change the formatting. So columns will be rows, rows will be columns. Now that it is done, we can go ahead and do what we want. But at this point I can see another problem, which is this is the rate that we want. We don't know that what date it is, because I think having the date is also important. Without knowing the date, we wouldn't know what is the date as of which that exchange rate is true. So before transposing, what I want is I want to bring this date information as part of the table, right? That's one more thing that we would like to do. So I can go to home, and then I can say, where it says use first row as headers, I can say use headers as first row. That will demote the headers and make the headers part of the data. So now date is also in my table. And then you see what happened as I demoted, again it added change type. This is what I don't like. I'll need to delete that. And then we will transpose. So now I have access to date as well, right? And then what we will do is we will go to home, keep rows, keep bottom one row. That means we just care about the latest exchange rate. We don't want what happened in the last 10 days. And this is what it is. So that's my date, and that's my exchange rate. So we want column 1 and column 5. We don't care about other columns. So select column 1, hold control and select column 5. This way you can multi-select things, and then right click and then say remove other columns. So this is my date, and that is XUSD, that is rate, exchange rate with USD. And that's the table. When I close and load, I will now get a table inside my workbook that tells me what is the date and what is the rate, right? And every day you just need to come and refresh. It'll bring the new date. If you want historical dates, you could also connect to the historical rates workbook as a Power Query connection and bring the data and use that in your analysis. So that is the last part of our Power Query tip. I'll just go back to the presentation so that I can show some more information to you before taking the questions. The files for this video will be available at that link. I will copy and paste this link in the comments as well as the video description. You just need to visit after 24 hours and you will be able to download. If you just visit the chandoo.org blog, chances are it will be on the home page. But if not, just search on the Google or on the YouTube description for that. And where do you learn more about Power Query? Power Query is a very, very powerful software, and it is a potentially time saving and a valuable skill to have. Whatever you do in Power Query, all the things that you do can be applied to both Excel and Power BI. So learning Power Query will give you 2x confidence, because you can do work better in Excel as well as you can do work better in Power BI. So I find learning Power Query to be one of the most important ways to upskill you in today's world. So just check out chandoo.org/wp, where I frequently write. There are many other websites where Power Query information is available. Ken Pulse maintains an excellent blog. There are several YouTube channels and other information as well. You could also check out on Facebook, where I occasionally post some tips, but most of that is again sourced on the blog first. You could even take an online class. Again, you just like this master class, but I created a comprehensive online Excel training program through which I teach all aspects of Excel, not just Power Query. And show you how to get the data through Power Query, how to analyze it, how to make graphs, how to make reports and everything. This course is called as Excel School. It takes all the 4 steps that are required for being awesome in your work. That is working with the data, making analysis through formulas and pivot tables, and creating outputs like charts, dashboards, and reports, and publishing and making them interactive and refreshable. So that's the Excel School program. If you are interested, just visit chandoo.org /WP and then see the Excel School information there, and sign up for that program if you are keen to learn more. So that's it from me. I'll now switch back to the comments mode so that we can discuss more about any questions that you have, and talk to you. So posted the link to download the files in the comments. Sandeep says thank you. That's for the powerful presentation. Thanks, Sandeep. I hope rest of you also enjoyed this. A recording of this will be available on YouTube and on the blog, so that if you want to have a recap or just skip ahead and watch portions of it, you would have access to that. I made a cup of a glass of cold coffee before start of the session, and I promptly forgot about that. So let me have a sip. Num Num asks, I have to teach a 2-day workshop to my coworkers on Power Query and wanted to see how the pros do it. What would you cover? Well, I find that teaching Power Query alone is rather tricky because you get the data, but then the benefits of it would not be immediately apparent if you don't see it in the full life cycle. So I highly encourage that you build a report or some sort of a solution based on Power Query, because that way they can see the entire journey. But if I do teach Power Query and Power Pivot and other things in 2-day sessions. Usual things that I cover, or I spend a lot of time in the beginner level connecting to files and setting up rules kind of thing. And then I would also teach about various types of connections, like especially internal sources like a SQL server or a SharePoint page or a folder of files, and modifying the sample query and making it more powerful. And I would also talk about parameters and how to build functions using Power Query, so that you could teach it a process, and then that process can be repeated on different data sets through as a function. I would also cover a little more detail about many of the menu features of Power Query, especially things like unpivoting data and group by, and a little bit of M, because I think 2 days is a really long time to have spend on Power Query alone. And I would also talk more about differences between loading the data as a table versus leaving it as connection, and how to push the connection to a data model, and maybe even talk about optimizing Power Query process, and what does it mean when you are connecting to a SQL server and query folding and those kind of things. Well, it is quite an exhaustive system, and maybe even teach a little bit of M towards the end, and debugging and working with some of the common issues. But yeah, ideally I would not go beyond teaching functions, and then at that point I will just stop and ask, teach more about building things on top of the data rather than spending more time on data processing. Anna says, this, thanks, Chandoo. Thank, great video. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's not the most convenient time for everyone around the world, but I've been trying to test various timings and see at what point we would have good balance between my sleep or working hours versus rest of the world. And living in the corner of the world is not making it easy, but I hope to be able to reach out to more audience through these sessions and share information. All right, thank you, everyone. And if you have more questions, leave them in the comments, and I will monitor that as well. And there is there are comments on the YouTube, and please visit the Power Query for accountants page, so that you could download the file and some more resource links and everything, and watch a recap of this video. Thank you. Bye.